Hello, we're glad you decided to look at Level. Today we're going to take a look at a new monitor that we've built. In our previous post, we talked about how Level introduced script-based monitors or custom monitors. And with that, it means that really anything through a script, whether it be PowerShell or Bash or otherwise, if you can query something on a device, then we can actually monitor it here in Level. And so today we're going to talk about Windows shadow copies. And Windows shadow copies are a great tool to allow sysadmins to be able to roll files back. And if you've ever needed to manage shadow copies, you might be familiar with VSS admin. That is the shadow copy command line tool that is built into Windows. And really, there's not that much we can do in here, but one of the things we're going to look at is the ability to list shadows. And a shadow is a point in time snapshot of a drive. And we can see there's a lot to take in here, but this just represents all the snapshots that happen to be in existence. And really the only things that we're concerned about when it comes to monitoring are are all of the drives accounted for? So I can see here we have a C drive, C drive, C drive. So we'll look through these and see if we can find any other drives. And then next, I'm also curious about, well, how recent is the snapshot? Because if we have a snapshot and it's 2 weeks old and something happens to a file 5 minutes from now, then I will have lost 2 weeks of work because I'm gonna have to roll it all the way back to 2 weeks, and I'd have to resort to backups then at that point. The reason that shadow copies are so beneficial is that it's so quick to be able to restore files that even the end users are able to do that themselves. So we can see here there's also a place for dates. Now this is really ugly and this is a lot to sort through. And so we're going to have to do a little bit of pattern matching in a script to make sense of this. So what we've done is we placed a script up here on our script repository on GitHub. That's found at github.com/level software/scripts. And I'm going to go under PowerShell and monitors. And here's one called check shadow copies. And so here it is. You can copy and paste this, or you can clone this repo if you'd like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this open in VS Code. So here I have it. And let's just take a look at what's going on here. So we have a variable at the top here that talks about hours since last shadow copy. The idea here is that it will be easily configurable in terms of what you consider as an acceptable period of time before the last shadow copy, before you'd like to trigger an alert. So in this case, I have 24 hours. But if in your environment you need to be more aggressive about monitoring this, and let's say if you don't have a snapshot within the last 2 hours or hour, then you can alter that variable right there. Next, we're going to make sure that you have at least PowerShell version 5. Looks like I have that in there twice, so I'll need to fix that. Yeah, we don't need you twice. And next we can see the command that we ran earlier, VSS admin list shadows. We're going to save that to a variable, and then what we're going to do is we're going to parse through all of that text. We're going to match some text so that we can pull out the dates, the creation time, and also the drive letters. And what we do is we're going to pull those out and we're going to stick that into a PowerShell custom object. And ultimately, it's going to be called right here, latest shadow copies. So let me just run the script up to this point. Yeah, let's start right here. And I can hit F8 or I can go to run selected. All right, so that's run. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a look at last shadow copy. And sure enough, here is my new PowerShell custom object. And we can see that I've captured C and E. And in this script, what we're doing is we're only saving the latest creation time. And so in this case, I can see that I've got one from 8/7 and from 8/10. So this one is a few days old. Today is the 10th, if I recall. So we're behind on this one. And based on that, this should trigger an alert because it's over 24 hours. Let's continue to go through here. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to pull out all of, well, let's just do get volume. Let's just do that first so you can see what it looks like. But we're going to enumerate all of the drives that are on a system. Now, there are some things that we need to filter out. We only really care about NTFS drives in this case. And also, it's like the formatting got thrown off. Let's do that again. There we go. Also, we only care about the drives if they have a drive letter. So we just have a filter here. Let me just copy and paste this. And this gets us down to where we have C and E because those are the only NTFS drives with a drive letter. So now that we've enumerated all of our drives that we care about, we are then going to compare this list with the custom object that we created earlier. And if there is a drive on the system that doesn't have a snapshot, let's see, how about this one right here? No shadow copies found for this drive. Then we're going to trigger an alert. Or if there is a drive, but the hours since the last snapshot is exceeded, then we're going to throw this error right here. And the third option is if we have a drive and it has a snapshot and it's within an acceptable period of time, then we are not going to alert. But this is going to be considered a healthy state. So that is it. Let's go ahead and run the script in its entirety. And since we saw that we had one drive that was missing, whoops, that was missing a recent snapshot, we should see an alert. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And there we go. We can see that drive C has a recent shadow copy, but drive E does not. And this is perfect. So now let's see how we can leverage this in level. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this script. And I'm going to come over to my level instance here. And I'm going to go to scripts and I'm going to create a new script. And let's call this monitor for volume shadow copy. And I'm going to paste the script in its entirety here. We'll leave the language as PowerShell. The timeout is 100 seconds. That's fine. This script runs very, very quickly, and we're going to run it as local system. Go ahead and save that. All right, so we now have our script in place. Next, I need to apply this script on a policy. So we have several policies in here, and the policy that makes the most sense in this particular environment is I would want to monitor file servers because that is where we would expect to see file shares, where there's going to be data for lots of different users. And that would be absolutely critical that volume shadow copy is running so that we can provide a layer of protection before a backup is needed. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new monitor. And we're going to say the name of this monitor is missing shadow copy. And the name of this is going to show up in the alert. So this will be very clear that we're missing a shadow copy. The type is going to be run a script. I'm going to say the severity of this is critical. We're going to choose Windows as the operating system. And now we are going to choose the script that we just created, monitor for volume shadow copy. Now I can test the script right now. Now there's only a single server that is using this monitor, but let's go ahead and just test this to see. So it's going to target the server called server, and I'm going to click execute. And let's open this up to see the results. And there are no shadow copies found for drive C. So we can see that this produces an error because that is not a desired state for us. So we know that the script is going to work. I'm going to go back here. And by the way, you'll notice that all of the messages that I want to alert on are prepended with this alert right at the front. And so that's actually going to be what we use to trigger the alert within level. So right here under the script output, I'm going to say if it contains the value alert, then that is what we're going to use to trigger it. Now, since this is just a demo here, I'm going to say let's just run this every minute. If this was in a production environment, I probably wouldn't be so aggressive. I would probably likely dial this back to really depending on what the threshold is in the script. In my case, I'm using 24 hours. So once every 24 hours would be sufficient for me here. We will choose to auto-resolve the alert if it's no longer applicable. In other words, once the volume shadow copies are resolved and in a healthy state, then the alert will go away. We could choose to run a remediation script. I won't do that here, but you could think of cases where it might be interesting, perhaps if there's a drive that doesn't have a shadow copy, to maybe enable shadow copy via a different script as a reaction to it if you wanted to. Okay, let's go ahead and add the monitor. All right, so now we have on this monitor policy, we are watching the landman server, which is just the service that runs the Windows file services, and we're checking to see if there's any missing shadow copies. And right away, I saw an alert pop up here, so that was very quick. And if I come over here, sure enough, we see that we have a critical alert on the server that we are missing a shadow copy. So that was it. Hopefully, this would be very useful for an IT team that it just wants to make sure that all of their systems are healthy, because it would be really easy for something to slip through the cracks. And there's nothing worse than the feeling of, oh, we need to recover some file or restore something, and you just don't have the ability to. And by the way, I say that not to imply that shadow copies are a replacement for backups. You absolutely need backups in addition to shadow copies, but it's just a great tool to have in your arsenal. Well, that's it. We hope that was informative for you. We're happy that you're using Level, and we hope that you will reach out with any questions. And by the way, if you have any scripts that you really would like to see in the repository, please let us know, and we will do our best to support you in your efforts to keep your IT team strong. Thank you for choosing Level.